and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks. I'm thrilled you could join us today. We are going to have a great conversation, as always, talking with a care partner who is caring for his wife and is an author, and just a fascinating story altogether. But before I introduce you to our guest, I always want to do a couple of shout outs. So first, I would really encourage you to go to alzheimerspeaks.com, check out all of our free educational resources. We have been creating these since 2009, and there are a variety of ways you can learn, from audio and video to written pieces. And you can also participate by joining dementia chats or dementia in the arts. If you're living with dementia, you could be our next guest. You could submit poetry or an article to our community section as well. So just go to alzheimerspeaks.com and you'll find information there. You can also check out our book, Betty the Bald Chicken, and you can access Dementia Map, our global resource directory, as well. So with no further ado, let's introduce you to our guest. Well, Tony, I am so excited to have you join us today. We talked a while back and we communicated actually years ago. I found some old emails and stuff, and I just can't wait for my audience to hear about your journey. So I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Not a problem. I'm Tony Copeland-Parker. I was flying airplanes for 37 years with United Parcel Service. I had a situation occur, and Catherine and we diverged and decided to do things a little bit differently. And I'll be telling you our story here in a little bit.
Okay. So, well, let's start out with, have you ever been touched by dementia in your own family or circle of friends? That'll open the barn door.
Well, I can go back to my mother. I took care of my mother for the last 9 years of her life, and she passed away back in 2013. And we used to have this ongoing joke, which is I would show up and say, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" She says, "I think I have dementia. I think I have Alzheimer's." I said, "Oh, really?" So I would point to the clock on the wall and I would say, "What's that?" She goes, "That's a clock." I said, "Well, then you don't have dementia. You don't have Alzheimer's," because usually you would say, "You know, that thing on the wall that tells you the time." So we would go back and forth on that. And then unfortunately, she did end up passing away from cancer, but she did not have any sort of dementia as she passed away. However, right after that, 2014, my partner, Catherine, I call her Kat, that's my pet name for her, was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's in 2014. Her dad had vascular dementia. And so we cared for him and we saw the decline, and vascular dementia took about 2 years to take him. And so we were a little bit fearful when we heard about her having early onset Alzheimer's as to the time horizon for her. So that's my experience with dementia, and I can tell you a little bit more as we go along.
So what were some of the signs or the symptoms that she was having to even go into the doctor to get diagnosed? Or did you just happen to go to the doctor and it got diagnosed and you really weren't expecting anything?
I started to notice something about a year before we went to the doctor. One that I remember so vividly was back in those days, you would sit down and you would reconcile your checkbook. You know, the statement would come in, you go, "Oh yeah, I wrote that check, I wrote that check, wrote that check." Usually takes 5 or 10 minutes. It was like the second day and she was still working on it. And I was like, "Oh, this is not good." And I started to talk to her and noticed that she was forgetting things and she was asking me questions over and over. And I thought that she might have a problem, but of course she was not willing to admit to it. She was working at the time. She was working for the government, and she got a new boss. And the new boss decided that he wanted things done a little bit differently than the way she was doing them. And she was able to cover her problem with just sticky notes and doing the same thing the same way and having a habit of doing such tasks. And when he came in and said, no, I want it done this way, then she started to have a real problem being able to comply with his wishes. And then with the government, they're like very strict on, okay, you're not pulling your weight. We'll put you on a personal improvement program. And he was basically trying to get her fired. So I kind of took the reins and said, we need to go to a doctor. We need to figure out exactly what's going on, because if you have a disability, your dad had dementia, then we can go ahead and have some better avenues for leaving your job, which we did. Went to a neurologist, and they did a battery of tests, and they came back with early onset Alzheimer's or a like condition. And they say the like condition because it can't be certain until after death when they do the autopsy on the brain exactly what the problem is. So with that information, we went back to her boss in HR, and we said, here's the paperwork. And we were able to get her a severance and also put her on disability. And she still gets disability from the government. And also we took that paperwork to Social Security and was able to get her on disability with Social Security. And of course, get Medicare for hospital stays. So it worked out great. It wasn't the best thing that could happen, but we were able to turn around and make the best situations out of it.
Gosh, when you were talking about the boss coming in and wanting things done differently and how she used her sticky notes, my mom lived with dementia for 30 years, and she worked at Deluxe Check as a proofreader. And she got to the point where she couldn't remember her process either. So she put together a 3-ring binder, and she would carry that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And she was scared to death someone would catch her with her 3-ring binder. She almost was paranoid about it because she did not want to lose her job. And but boy, she did that for years. It was kind of amazing because she just didn't want to go in and get checked out. And even when she did mention it to her doctor, he just poo-pooed it, that all it was her menopause,
Oh, yeah.
And so for 10 years she heard that, and that didn't work. So kudos for you for thinking on your feet and getting her in and getting that diagnosis, and then taking the proper steps and, positioning yourself the very best you can, when the disease hits. As far as the diagnostic process, how did she take that? I know that can be really intense and overwhelming for many.
It was intense. As a matter of fact, we had a number of crying spells afterwards, waiting for the report to come in. And the report was like 20 some pages, very detailed as to, questions they asked and their interpretation of her answers to it. And unfortunately, she had to do it twice because with Social Security, they wanted to make sure that they weren't getting the wool pulled over them. So they got their own guy, and then she went in and had to do it all over again. But the second time around, it wasn't as extensive because he could tell that, by then that it was, pretty clear that she had a problem.
That I remember my mom going through that too. It was horrible. She just walked out so deflated, like she was worthless. And it was just so sad. It was hard to console her, because we didn't really know what happened behind closed doors because we weren't there, but we knew it wasn't good, because that was not her typical personality at all. With that, how did she react to the diagnosis?
It was one of those situations where she was fearful that something was going on, and especially since her dad had the dementia. And one of the things that she really was concerned about was how I was going to treat her with it. For example, her family kind of shunned him away, put him in a VA first and then a nursing home and that type of situation. She was afraid I was going to do the same. And I told her and assured her that, no, we're going to treat this as a team effort, and I'm going to be by her side and throughout. And she quickly kind of put that all behind her because, we sold everything and hit the road and we had adventure after adventure. So it kind of pushed all that, to the side.
That's a big step to sell everything and just really be out there on your own, where a lot of people want to be around friends and family and things, and yet they don't tell friends and family a lot of
Right.
times. Did you let people know that she was diagnosed when you left or prior to leaving?
Oh, yes. We told all the family, all the friends. I started writing to a blog and was, keeping people updated as to, what we found out and all that. So everybody was, and she wanted that. She really wanted people to know, and she encouraged me to write and to give other folks the information that could possibly help them. So she wanted to be kind of an example for others as they move forward through this disease process.
Oh, that's fantastic for her to be willing to share that and
Mm-hmm.
for you to be able to put the work towards it, because that is time consuming. Did you find that process for you healing?
Oh, absolutely. It was very therapeutic for me to be able to, write down what I was experiencing, what I was feeling at the time. Because what happens is if you don't write it down, then it just bounces around in your head. It's like, oh, this is going on, that's going on. And then if you write it down, you say, okay, I've put it somewhere. It's there. We just leave it alone. Everything's fine. So, and, the writing part of it just kind of developed, over and over as I moved through the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it very healing as well, and then people would reach out, and I just felt not alone. Where before I
Right.
felt really isolated, and it was like, boy, there's just this huge community out there that wants to share and support one another and laugh and cry with you and spur you on, and I just found that to be amazing. These perfect strangers,
Right.
when I really wasn't always getting that kind of support from my own family in terms of dealing with my mom.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody talks about the social media and it's taking over our lives. But, like you said, the support I was getting, I would be posting these to Facebook and Instagram and all, and then people would be commenting, thank you very much for sharing your story. And then they would tell their story, and then we would have some conversations back and forth. So it helped out a whole lot.
Yeah, there's kind of like two sides to the social media. There's that authentic side that's talking about real life everyday stuff that no one's hiding behind a mirror, and then you have the keeping up with the Joneses
Right.
and the Kardashians,
Right.
and life is perfect and there's never a
Yeah.
downside to it. And it's
Right.
like,
Right.
what world are you living in?
Yeah.
Because
That's a
I
true
haven't
statement.
stepped into that one yet, and I'm 64. I still
Yeah.
have the ups and downs, and I think I always will. And my goal is just to learn from those things that aren't perfect in my life, which are the majority of things in my life.
It's interesting though. I always, in my writings and talking about Catherine, I always kind of look at what's the positive spin I could put on the story, as opposed to, oh, woe is me, this is what happened today. I kind of look at her accomplishments, what she was able to do, and our goals. I always, talk about our goals, what we're setting to, planning on doing in the future to try to
Oh,
give some
that's
hope to
good.
others. Yeah.
Yeah, I would give kind of the authentic side of the, oh, what do I do now type moment. And then what we figured out and then how it worked out.
Right.
And, to me, they were all life lessons. And
Right.
I also found that really what was good for dementia was really good in all other areas of my
Hmm.
life. I mean, it really
Hmm.
just taught me to look at the world differently in individuals and situations differently, and to have more patience, which that's probably my number one priority in my own life. I still need
Right.
more of it, but it really helped me grow in that area. Because I can look back now and go, boy, that was an area I was really lacking in, was patience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be a patient.
Exactly, exactly. So when you guys decided to just, sell everything and up and leave, was that something the two of you really talked about for a long time, or was it fairly quick?
It was fairly quick because what ended up happening was I was trying to decide whether I was going to retire or not. Uh, and, was I going to be the type of individual that leaves her at home, to
Mhm.
fend for herself during the day while I continue to work and try to continue to grab for the brass ring, as it were? Or was I going to go ahead and retire? I was, you know, had a really good job at UPS. I really enjoyed my job. And then two things that happened that were just, it meant to be. Number one was my boss came to me and said, we're going to move you to another job. It was, the beginning of the year where they do these rotations. And it was a job I had had before. I didn't particularly like. I really liked the job I had. So I was like, okay, you guys are trying to push me out. That's okay. Not a big deal there.
Mhm.
And then I said, well, why stay in Louisville? Let's look at maybe moving somewhere else. So we put our condo up on the market, and shortly thereafter, some lady came in and said, I've got cash. I want you out in 2 weeks. And we were like, I said, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. So I went to my boss. I said, no, I'm not going to take that new job. I'll take my retirement. I've been here long enough for a pretty good retirement pension. And now, what we were going to do, I wasn't too sure of. It wasn't set that, we're going to do this or that. But we had some races that we were already on the schedule. So what we said was, okay, let's go see what's out there. Let's go look at maybe someplace else to live. And we're going to do this race in February in Tokyo. And what I started doing is putting together a schedule. Saying, okay, we're going to be in Tokyo. What's a nice place to visit on the way to Tokyo? What's a nice place to visit on the way back from Tokyo? And next thing I knew, I had 30 days. And then there was another race. And I said, oh, where's a nice race nice place to go, on the way to that race. And then we did it that way. And next thing I know, a year is gone and we still haven't found a place to live. And we were, had more races. And also I found a couple of groups that really helped out. One group was Marathon Tours and Travel. They're based in Boston. And what they do is, let's just say you're going to go to Tokyo. Well, they set it up. They get your registration. They find the hotel for you. They have a dinner, reception dinner. They do a tour for you. So you're there for a week and you get to see the city and all. And we did a lot of trips with them. And then there was another group that we did similar type of situations where we do some smaller races, but we just, bounced back and forth. And then, of course, we would do some cruises and we would do some sightseeing. And, year after year after year, it just kept, piling on. One of the things I did do is I decided that, since we were in Atlanta, we moved to, kind of made that our hub. Atlanta has Delta Airlines. So we just kept all our flying on Delta. We really enjoyed staying in Marriott hotels. So we kept all our Marriott points and we rented Hertz cars because it didn't make any sense for us to have a car. We're going to be here. Why would we have a car? How are we going to get there? So we just got rid of our cars also, and we would just rent cars. So we just stayed with those three programs and were able to sometimes, the car rentals were real expensive. So we used some points for that. The hotel was really expensive. So we used some points for that. The flight was really expensive. So we used some miles for that. So it helped out keep the expenses down.
Oh, that's smart. Gosh, so your life really changed.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Big time. How did the two of you adjust to that in the beginning? Was it pretty much just like going on vacation, when she's got young onset? And then has it gotten more difficult as things have progressed, I would imagine, since it's been 10 years almost?
Yes. Early on, you're forgetting where your glasses are, forgetting where, what you had to eat, forgetting little things. It was no big deal. The first, 4 or 5 years was, I was just helping her out. She was a very, very social person.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very helpful because as you know, they want to withdraw. They don't want to be out and, have people looking at them and go, oh, there's something wrong with me. So she would start up a conversation with anybody if they asked the details about where we had been or where we're going. She would just turn to me and she said, well, this is my brain. Ask him. and then I get drawn into the conversation, and I would have to finish up the story as to what we did and where we gone. And then also, she didn't have any problems telling people. I have early onset Alzheimer's, and I don't know much of what's going on. So talk to Tony about it, and we would be able to carry on the conversation, and also the fact that we were basically nomads. We had no home. So when people would say, where are you from? Well, actually, we're nomads. We've been on the road for 2 years or 3 years or whatever. And everybody was like, oh, I want to hear this story. So it was very engaging. So it was really good. As I saw, our plan was that it was ability to keep her social. We were able to see new and exciting things. The Eiffel Tower, having lunch on the Eiffel Tower, or, running across the London Bridge, things like that. And then also the fact that exercise, because we were doing marathons, half marathons, just about all the time, and then training for them just about all the time. So we were running, constantly. So
Wow.
that part also helped out a whole lot.
That's amazing. For those of you that are just tuning in right now, we are talking with Tony, and he is talking about his journey with his partner, Catherine, who has early onset, and how they kind of flipped things like a pancake, left their jobs, and started traveling around the world doing marathons. And just a fascinating story. He has a website called runningwithcat.com, and that's CAT. He's also on Facebook, Instagram, and has a book out, Running with Cat, as well. And we'll have all the links for you in the show notes here. Also, we're going to hear a little bit about Q Blocks, and then we're going to be right back. And I think I'm going to have Tony read a poem that he wrote about their nomad lifestyle. So we'll be right back. I also want to introduce you all to Q Blocks. They have been absolutely excellent to deal with. They have been in business for 18 years, and they serve the globe. I can't say enough good things about this company. I've had a lot of bad experiences. I don't know about you with tech companies. They have made a very complicated process very easy. And their staff is so kind, so polite, so respectful to work with. And when I am frustrated and ready to pull my hair out, they just smile and tell me everything's going to be okay. And they really are just on top of the communication, which alleviates so much stress as an owner when you're dealing with tech issues. You can get a 10% discount. Visit them at QBlocks, that's CUEBLOCKS.com, or you can email them at letstalk@qblocks.com. For that 10% discount, just put Lori, Lori, in the inquiry form. And again, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I surely haven't been. I can't rave enough about this company, and that's kind of rare these days. Tony, I am just fascinated at all you have done and the lifestyle you've chosen, and how you have really embraced caring for Catherine. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing how you've continued to do what you two have loved to do for years and years. So I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing your poem, Nomads, with us.
Absolutely. Nomads. Why nomads, you might ask? It's impossible to make it last. She has Alzheimer's, so let her be. She needs routine, can't you see? I like to explore, manage, and travel. So what about me? Nomad is a noun with no fixed residence, whereas I am somewhat hesitant. I like peregrinate, which is a verb, since we have done most by foot. Over the last 8 years, it took all of our loot. If you were to ask me, I don't give a hoot. Marathons were mostly our fare, but none were ever done on a dare. It was ours to spin as we saw fit. I would do it again, since we spent time on beautiful islands such as St. Kitts. Alzheimer's really does not care. It's not something you would want to share. Everyone's experience is somewhat different, but I can now assure you that the damage is permanent. I once thought I was going to find the elusive cure. Many companies use that hope as their lure. As the disease progresses, we will have to settle down, but not until sundown. We used to run when the sun would rise. Now it slow walks hand in hand to no one's surprise. We saw and did so many things she will not always remember. I will not trade away those memories since they now define her. Her beautiful smile and baby blue eyes sparkle remain. We all now know it will never be the same. They say Alzheimer's cruel joke is called a long goodbye. However, my cat will always know that I will never leave her side.
Oh, that last line really got me. Oofka. That's beautiful.
I've made a promise to her, and as you can imagine, as the disease progressed, we can't travel as much as we used to. As when we were on the go for the first 8 years, we were picking up and moving along every 4 days. Now we've moved into a senior living facility up here in Roswell called Brookdale Senior Living Facility, and it's perfect for us. We still travel. As opposed to every 4 days, we usually take a trip once a month or every other week. And I have a fantastic group of ladies that help me. I have 6 ladies that rotate in and out, usually 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Their one requirement is they have to be able to walk 3 miles an hour and love cat the way I do. And as a matter of fact, as we're recording this, I have one lady that's out there right now. The facility that we're in, the reason why I picked it is because it has over 2 miles of corridors indoors, and everybody decorates their doorways for Christmas and Easter and all. And then we have a half-mile walkway around the facility. It's beautifully landscaped with pool and gardens and all. So, when the weather's nice, they're outdoors walking, they're listening to the birds sing. And when they're indoors, she's giving out hugs to all the mom types that are here. So we're doing really well. We've transitioned also by me adding a lady, the 6th lady, who is now called the travel companion. So when we go and I need to have 4 hands, trying to navigate the airport and all, I pay someone to travel with us, and it's been working out really well.
Oh, fantastic. I work with the Roseville AD group, Alzheimer's and Dementia Community Action Alliance group here in Roseville, Minnesota, and they've been very active on working on getting TSA trained. They've got a whole website with all kinds of information, and I'll put a link into the show notes on travel because some people might be inspired to look into that. And they use the sunflower lanyard. I don't know if you've heard of that at all, but that is something that people can wear as an ID that helps staff in the airport understand that you might need more assistance. But there's all kinds of links that can assist people in terms of getting on and off and to and fro and what to pack and all of those types of things, because that can get complicated. And there's now a program that's actually certifying travel companions too, because it's becoming such a huge need out there. People are realizing that everything isn't doom and gloom, and you can still live life to its fullest. And having additional support is wonderful. I want to talk about your book. Now, you said that you did some blogging. Was your blogging kind of your journaling, and that kind of sparked you to put a book in, or was a book just a whole different thought altogether for you?
No, so I was blogging, and I was writing my journal, basically, and putting it out for everybody to read. What ended up happening, it was really a strange turn of events. We were traveling. We were on a cruise to St. Martin. And we got off the ship in St. Martin, and that was back in March of 2020. And then that's when COVID hit. And we transitioned over to St. Kitts, and we were going to stay there for a couple of weeks. My sister has a condo there, so we're just going to stay there a couple of weeks. Well, St. Kitts ended up taking the tact of, we're closing down the island. Nobody's coming, nobody's going, and we're going to survive through COVID with nobody coming on our island, which meant we couldn't leave. So I'm stuck there for a month, and there's nothing really to write about anymore. And then I said, this might be a good time for me to think about writing a book. So what I did was I took all of my writings of the blog and I compiled it together. And then I hired a professional editor. So we were communicating back and forth while I'm sitting in St. Kitts. And we were editing the book. And then when we got back off the island, I decided that, yes, this is what I wanted to do. Is go ahead and put the book out. So that's how it all came about.
So tell our audience again what the name of the book is and who your audience is.
It's running all over the world, Our Race Against Early Onset Alzheimer's. And it's basically, if you're a runner, if you're a traveler, if you have somebody with Alzheimer's, or you have somebody with another type of disease. And what I want to do is I want folks to realize that you can find joy within the disease. It's not a death sentence, it's a life lesson. And I give you many examples of how we looked at the situations totally different from what people normally do. So they say, person with Alzheimer's needs to have a routine. You have to get up at the same time, you have to be in the same place, so they can find a way to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. Well, what I did was I said, travel is going to be our routine. Bathroom might change, we might have a destination change, but at the same time, when she's getting frustrated about trying to figure out, where the bathroom is or where she she looks out the window, she goes, oh my goodness, look at the Swiss Alps. Aren't they beautiful? And it just kind of melts away all the frustrations. So what we did was, and I encourage folks to start early as opposed to waiting until, okay, let's take one more trip before, it's too late, because that kind of can mess them up. And you can get out there and then they want to be home and they don't realize that, you're 4,000 miles away. So I want them to get into the habit of doing it early. And also what I wanted to show is that the travel industry is really geared towards folks with disabilities. The blind, you have seeing eye dogs, you have people who can't hear, you have people who have other types of missing limbs, things like that. And so when they see us coming and they know that I'm holding on to her a little bit tighter or her head, it might be dropped down, they know, okay, these folks need help. I could actually be walking through the terminal and folks with wheelchairs, they're pushing wheelchairs going someplace else will stop and say, do you need help? I don't know, I'm fine, because actually Catherine wants to walk. She doesn't want to, get in a wheelchair and be carried off somewhere. So, we take our time, but we get to the gate and we actually get there early and we walk the terminal and all. And she loves seeing the different people and smiling at them and all. So, and getting on the airplane, I remember one time, she was a little frustrated and she was a little agitated. And, flight attendant came by, everything okay? I said, bring me a snack. And she went and she grabbed some chips and, Catherine was fine, having a snack there. So,
everybody gets a little hankry every now and then.
Yes, that's a true statement there.
Well, and I'm thinking too, all the exercise, that had to be good just for the blood stimulation, the oxygen throughout the body and keeping her healthy. And I'm wondering, with neuroplasticity, if the change in routine actually was a good thing for her in terms of learning things new too, right. Because there's so much coming out journal-wise on that. And it's kind of an interesting concept. I think routines we like so that we have control.
Right. Right.
I'll never forget, I don't know if you know Harry Urban or not, but he's been living with dementia for, 15, maybe even close to 20 years now. And he said routines are great. He's like, but you got to remember whose routine they are. If you want us to follow your routine, that might not work so well.
Right.
The whole point is making it our routine so it fits where we're sitting. And you knew Catherine well enough that you guys like to travel and what brought her joy, and just really incorporated that into your, everyday life with this. And that took a lot of guts to go against everything that was being said out there in terms of, you shouldn't be doing this, that she's not capable of doing this.
Right.
Because I think there's so much advice out there that, and that's, I think, one of the things that got me into this space too, was I was tired of the doom and gloom. And I wanted people like you to show me how to live well. What are some other options? Because the way you live your life and the way I live my life are probably totally different. That doesn't make either of us wrong. It just says this is what fits for us individually. So why, when there's a disease, are you supposed to just do one thing? That always drove me crazy, and still does to this day. I think it's one of those diseases that really pushes us to be fluid and in the moment, and really understand who we are and who they are. And again, focusing on, and you had said this earlier, what is going to bring them joy.
Yes, absolutely. I had another reasoning behind the book, which was, I thought, wouldn't it be nice, we're sitting wherever, and I flipped the book open and I started reading to her, some stories about where we had been, and I have some pictures in it, and I flipped to the page, and there's a picture of us with a nice background. And then I said, well, I like to listen to Audibles books, so maybe I can find somebody that will read it for us. So I went out and hired a guy to put on an Audible book, so you can get it on Audible also, which means that as we're driving along in Utah going to our race, I toss in the Audible book, and she's sitting over there just smiling because, of course, it's written about her. So her name is mentioned over and over. Catherine did this, Catherine did that. And she's just over there beaming, recalling some of the crazy things that we did. And she really enjoys that. And then the other thing is that in our apartment, I found this is an item called a Fire Stick, where you plug into your TV. Your photos go to Amazon Photos, and Amazon Photos goes to the Fire Stick. So I can have a slideshow while we're eating breakfast with music playing in the background of our pictures. And she can look up and go, oh, yeah, she smiles at the picture of us, in Paris or wherever. So that's always, I'm trying to keep those memories going as best as I can of our past.
Well, and that's a wonderful tip for people. I think people forget about all the different ways we could stay connected that, can just be playing in the background.
Right.
It doesn't have to be the main event per se, but just all of those little things can make a really, really big, big difference. What kind of feedback have you gotten from people on the book?
Oh, very, very positive feedback. Folks love it. They, a number of people that we know, are in it. Oh yeah, I remember when we were in South Africa and we did this and that. And, I mentioned their names, things of that nature. Some folks are, I'm not too sure this is something I could do with my mother or with my, husband or whatever. And I tell them, I said, it doesn't have to be, I'm just giving you a concept. The concept is, what do the two of you love to do? Do it together as long as you can, as opposed to, oh, well, she likes to go play bridge, so she'll play bridge with her girlfriends. And I like to play golf. I'm going to go play golf with my friends. And then we'll come together in the evening and we'll have dinner. No, get up in the morning. What do you guys love to do together? And do it together all day long, all evening long, because you don't know how long you're going to have. You really don't. The time horizons for this disease. Our dad died after 2 years. There's people, your mother, 30 years. You don't know. So you have to, go ahead and make every day count and do as much as you can. And I think the fact that, I'm here all the time, and we're doing things. We're still, getting on airplanes, and we're still doing races. She can't run anymore. She lost the ability to run almost 2 years ago. But she still walks about 3 miles an hour and puts in about 5 to 6 miles every day of walking, either indoors or outdoors. And then I have what is known as the Catmobile, which is an adult-sized stroller. And we'll go through a race. Let's say we're going to do a half marathon. She'll do a 5K, a half mile at a time. I'll push her for a mile and a half. She'll get out and she'll walk for a half a mile. Then I'll put her back in and we'll run for another mile and a half. And she'll get out. And at the end, she'll get a medal for doing a 5K, and I'll get a medal for doing the half marathon. And, people that know us and see us out there are always encouraging. I have a little sign on it, with her name. So they call out her name, as she goes by or I go by. So it's really nice.
That's cool. I just interviewed a gal that might help some people out if they don't know how to put a book together, don't have the time. And it's Lori Yauch, Yauch. And she has a company called Meaningful Memory Makers. And if you send her just photos and little snippets of summaries of who's in the pictures and things like that, she'll put a book together for you, it's like under $100. I mean, it's reasonable. And to not, because how much time it takes to put a book together. And I just found that fascinating. And when I interviewed her, it was just in December. So if people want to go back, they can hear that. There was one woman who said her mom just held on to her book and carried it around with her all the time. And the pages were kind of mangled a little bit because she was in it all the time, looking at all these memories.
Oh, that's great.
And I just thought, how cool is that? And so there's so many workarounds, because not everybody can do what everyone else does. You got to do what fits into your life. And, and that can make a cool little legacy piece for family members as well. Which is really, really cool too. So you seem like a guy that's that has a lot of goals, and you just punch through them. What's next on your bucket list here?
Oh, yes, this is fabulous. So in April of this year, it will be 10 years since Catherine was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Let me back up. She has run 89 marathons. She has done a marathon in all 50 states. We finished that up in October of 2020. And we then set the new goal of running a half marathon in all 50 states. She was able to run 43 states, and I pushed her 6 states, and we have a plan in April to be in Wisconsin to do our 50th state as a half marathon. And that will be tying in with the fact that she was diagnosed 10 years ago. So that's the correlation there. And that will be the ending of my second book, which I'm finishing up right now. So we're going to have that come out in August of 2024.
Wisconsin is huge in terms of supporting dementia. I would definitely tie in. Every county actually has a dementia specific counselor to be able to help people. I mean, they're just doing amazing things. So you might want to check in with the ADRC over there, because I think they might be able to help you get some PR, which would be really
absolutely.
fun.
Absolutely. I have some folks that are going to be coming with us to help me with the event, help me push her. So we're in, and I plan on she's going to walk the start, and she's going to walk a little bit during the race, and then we hopefully will be able to walk across the finish line. So that's the plan there. So
What
yes, I'll
city
walk
will
out to
you
that.
be in?
I will be in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Yep. The
Okay.
20th of April. That's where we'll be.
Oh, that's exciting. That's
Yes,
really
I'm really
exciting.
excited about that. Yep.
You guys should get
And
some national coverage on that
yeah,
one.
and
You really,
then we're going to start doing 10Ks.
okay.
We have 14 states done already, so we'll go back around a third time, and maybe a 5K go around a fourth time. We'll just keep going. I love to manage. I love to travel, and I love being with her. So we're gonna continue doing this as long as we can.
Wow. That's so cool. What are some things that you think are really critical for family members to know and people that get diagnosed?
Well, one of the things I found out later on, and I wish I had known it earlier, is that let's just say, for example, I don't reach out to someone and say, I have a problem. I need help. Well, what they're assuming is Tony didn't reach out, so he must not have a problem. He must not need help.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that I urge people is you have to tell folks that you need help or they won't help you. And even close family members, it doesn't matter because they got their own world. They got their own things they're doing, baseball games, whatever they got going on. So it's really important for you to communicate to them the amount of help. The second thing is that just because you tell them doesn't mean you're going to get any.
Mhm.
And you can't take it personally. It's just the way that their brains are wired, and some folks want to remember them as they were and not as they are. And you see that all the time with people that have a disease that are failing, that family members don't come around and support. So that's the other thing that I had to learn along the way.
Yeah, I just read something on Facebook and I had seen this before and heard about it, but it's worth mentioning. One of them they called, and this happened to do with death, but this could happen anytime when you're dealing with some kind of illness. But they called it grief groceries, where people could order food and just have it go through Instacart. And instead of saying, what can I help you with? They said, will you be home at 7:30 tonight? And they were like, well,
Aw,
that's a weird question. And they're like, yeah, okay. And then groceries show up.
that is
And
fabulous.
and then they put in, food that could be reheated. And then, the guy who was writing the article said, I had my Oreos and ice cream if I just needed a moment to binge. They knew what I liked. And
Right,
then other people had bought gift cards to their favorite restaurants.
right.
So then Uber, they could just have that delivered to them and stuff. And I thought those are neat ways to be able to help if somebody can afford to do those
Yeah,
types of things.
that's
But
right.
there's so many different ways to be able to help, from just talking on the phone to coming over and visit, or taking your loved one for a little while for a walk while you're doing something else. I mean, it's or just being part of being able to go out together and being comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
Playing a game where the rules aren't always followed, if somebody can't follow them, and not getting upset. Uh, it's all those little things, but it is kind of amazing how many people do walk away from discomfort, both within the family and circle of friends.
Yeah, yeah.
And I found too that when my mom got diagnosed, and I mean, she's been gone since 2014, so this is 40 years ago. We didn't really tell anybody, and so they didn't know, and so their expectations were she could still do whatever she could do prior. And I would find that really frustrating. And then one day I kind of had to slap myself in the face going, well, that's your own doing
Right, right.
from not sharing. But there's that fine line of dignity, and protecting them. And then I thought, gosh, I'm just reacting out of fear, and I'm not stepping up with hope, and I'm not stepping up with real life. I mean, we all have stuff we have to adapt to.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think people forget that easily. And we kind of buy into the media's pounded kind of the doom and gloom stuff into our heads for years and years and years. And so it's turning around, slower than I'd like, but it is turning around.
Yes,
And
it
I think
is.
that's a lot, has to do with a lot of people like you and myself and so many others that are talking about this whole other side of the journey. And, you are just exemplifying, love. And have you found that there are different levels of unconditional love through this journey? I know I experienced that with my mom.
It's tough. There are times where it's tough, where you want to, blame her.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was I gave Alzheimer's a name.
Mm-hmm.
That's Allie. Allie is doing this. Catherine is trying her absolute best, and every day I keep telling myself that, when she's, somewhat uncooperative, she's trying her best to be cooperative,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the same time, she'll crack that smile, her eyes will, glimmer, and then you're just like, that's the reason why. I remember now. That's the reason why. Makes the whole everything else of the whole day just go away.
Yeah,
And she
it's slowing down and capturing those moments.
right,
And I think to me, that was one of the biggest lessons I learned was to, really watch for all those nonverbals that could easily be missed.
right.
But I'm a true believer that you will find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for joy, it's there.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if you're looking for just a wrenched life, you will find it there too as well.
Right.
And really made me think I do have a choice in all of this and how I look at this and who I want to be to that person. And it's just there's such deep beauty in it. I think you have just done an absolutely fantastic job. I know for me, Tony, and again, my mom's been gone 10 years, but I can have the worst day of my life and I can go back and I can watch some of those snippets, or you'd be able to read those pieces of those stories.
Right.
And no matter what was going on in my day, it melts away and it just says life is good. And in just a second of seeing that, and that I really wasn't expecting. When I was putting it together, I was just kind of doing it, but I didn't realize the power of the after effect it would have on me. That's really been a gift. That again, nobody wants to get to that point, but I would imagine even now when maybe Catherine's having a bad moment or something, you go back on those memories and all the cool things that are happening and even reminiscing with her about that and being able to get that glint in her eyes. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than seeing that change, I don't think. Anyways, there hasn't been for me.
Yeah, I get something out of, having those slideshows, on the TV myself. I sit there, I just stop and go, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's where we were. Oh, look at that, and it just brings a whole lot to me. And I know it'll always be there. So I will always have those memories to be able to cherish for the rest of my life also.
Yeah,
So
what you've
it's all
accomplished together is absolutely amazing. Anything else that you want to share with our audience that we haven't covered?
well, only thing that I would like to add is the fact that I ask folks, to go down this path, not to get spun around the axle and trying to find a cure. There's a lot of hype out there about medications, and you're going to get inundated with companies saying try this pill, try that pill, do this, do that. Take the time to just enjoy life. There is no cure. We probably won't find one. Unfortunately, what's happening is everything else in medicine, in terms of body parts, is keeping up, and we're able to replace hearts and lungs and all this. But the brain is still something that is just so complicated that we have not quite figured out what exactly is going on. So it's going to take a long time for us to crack the nut on Alzheimer's. So I would suggest them to just not spend a whole lot of time trying to go down that road of. We went through a clinical trial. The drug worked for us, but they decided not to go to market with it. So it was kind of devastating to us at that point. But, just try to enjoy life and enjoy your time together. Try to spend as much time together as you can. I know some cases people are not going to be able to leave their job and retire. They're going to need to have, leave their loved one at home alone. But as soon as you have enough, go ahead and make that move and try to find something. It might just be a museum. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I like going to museums. She likes going to museums. Go to museums together. Find one in every different cities, or whatever the car distance is, whatever you can afford to do. But do it together, because it's going to be very special. And then write about it, and then I'll take a lot of pictures. I wish I had taken more videos. That's something I didn't do. And I wish I had. So that's something else that I would point out to folks, is take videos of your loved one so that you can have that as a remembrance.
Need to get one of those, what is it? Those
GoPros
cameras.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. There, yeah, it's well, and there's people that do like stay vacations too, where they just watch travel things if they're not able to travel anymore. And you can still reminisce and have good conversations and things. So again, there's no magic bullet. And I liked what you said about the medications. I think so often people, they'll put all their marbles in one jar going, yeah, this pill's going to work, and then when it doesn't, it's like they don't know what to do, and so nurture the relationship that you have, because no one can ever strip that from you. You can only give that away. Yep. No one can take it from you. And so you're totally in charge. Well, in wrapping up, Tony, I can't thank you enough. This has just been a wonderful, uplifting conversation. And I think will really inspire a lot of people to look at living alongside dementia graciously and in a whole different light, and, stepping out and being brave and trying something new. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. It's not a big deal. It's not a failure. It's just a lesson learned that you're going to have to adapt a different way. That's all. But, try and then share, write about it, let others know, because you're going to be helping them along the way as well as yourselves. I always ask our audience to be a giver of hope and click, and share the episode. Not because I want the numbers, that has never been my purpose, but it's because you have people in your own sphere of influence that need this information, and they're not telling anybody. They're in that space where no one really needs to know our personal business, or we're still in denial in terms of dealing with it. And, the more we push stuff out, the more it makes it easier for people to grab, because it becomes more normal. Again, it doesn't take any time, doesn't cost you any money, and it can really have a huge impact on others. Again, you can go to Tony's website, which is runningwithkat.com. He is on Facebook, Instagram. I'll just put all of these links in. Same for the book. And then there's a little video too that'll kind of show you a little bit about them. So we will make sure that you connect to Tony. And again, feel free to share.
I would just say, make sure you have some tissues when you watch the video.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Good to know. And so, for everyone, again, thank you so much for being part of our community. We will talk to you again in a couple of days. Thanks again, Tony.
You're quite welcome. It's been my joy.
Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. Few people could just flip the switch from working a career 30 or 40 plus years, retiring on Friday without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.